I just, I guess if you got to focus, you got to focus.
But it's different teams. I mean, so this would be the result of a bunch of layoffs. Like,
Right.
Mozilla Social shutting down is probably 6 people are getting fired.
Maybe. I
really
doubt
what's
it.
happening.
It's probably not even that much.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's unfortunate. So September 3rd, this would
I'm just
have
hopeful
been,
that they gave that one guy something else to work on.
I hope so. Oh my God. The translation thing, dude, you can select it, right-click it, and translate all within Firefox.
Yep.
Dude, that's cool. I love that. That is amazing. Oh no, there's a chatbot feature. People are going to hate this. Still a winner in my heart.
Yeah, that's right.
I still think it's the absolute best browser. Put it up against anything. Coming up in this episode, another browser watch? The history of Linux Mint and cinnamon. And how spicy was it? Welcome to Linux User Space. I'm Leo.
And I'm Dan.
Dan, welcome back. We've made it.
Yeah, we did. Been 2 weeks. Second episode. 5th season. Here we are.
Turns out we have staying power, it turns out. And I'm back to bug you about Mozilla. But I don't think the conclusion's going to be what you think.
Yeah, Leo's got a hot take here. So,
well, before we get to my hot take, we got to talk about the goings on, right? Like, we haven't talked about Browser Watch for a good 3 or 4 months. So some stuff has happened. And the first one, a good one. I like it. It's awesome. It should be on the screen right now. But if it's not, click on the link in the show notes so you can see it. Mozilla got themselves a new logo. And I'm super partial to pixel art. And that's very much what this is.
It's a pixel art take on, the old logo, honestly. So,
and it's got this cute little, so it's a flag, right? For those that refuse to click on links and are not watching the video,
right.
It's a flag, very just straight line up and down, and it's an M on its side, and it looks like a flag with a single pixel to represent the eye of the dinosaur, right? So before it was a red dinosaur.
Yeah.
But now it's a super simple rendition of it in the form of a flag. And it comes with an animation. So like its back grows into a J,
right.
And then it gets an equal sign and then an underscore for feet, right? For hands and feet. So it's just really cute. And then it rears its head back and yells. It's cute.
It's a nice fresh take, really, seriously, because the old red dinosaur logo has been around for quite some time.
Always looked a little derpy to me. Those teeth just made it look a little weird. I've never been in love with that dinosaur, man.
He's not the cutest guy, no. So no. I think this is cool. I think it brings it a little more modern, right? So,
yeah.
I mean, the original red guy, he's 1998. I mean, and he looks like he's right out of the 90s. So, I mean, it's a fair thing, yeah.
He sure does. They got their cool. I thought their logo that they introduced in 2017, it was just Mozilla spelled out, but the I was a colon and the L's were forward slashes to represent protocols that you would, call in the browser, right? Like HTTPS : //
Yeah,
it's
crafty.
M.
Yep.
Yeah, M : / A, right? Like that was clever. I thought that was super clever. It's hard to call it a logo. It's like a word mark.
Yeah.
Right?
So maybe that's another thing. It's just kind of hard to trademark that stuff.
Right. And so the little dinosaur flag, though, that is unique, and I like it. That's really cool. But that's it. That's all the good news. I'm kidding. There's a little bit more good news, but the sad thing is Mozilla.social, their federated Mastodon server, now has a death date. It will die completely on December 17th. So if you're on Mozilla Social, you need to get off.
Yeah, you got to
migrate now.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, here's my thing about this. I tried to sign up for Mozilla.social a long time ago, right? When they announced it, and it looked like it was invite only, and you had to know somebody that knew somebody that was somebody, and then they would like get you an invite. Did open registration happen and I didn't notice?
I'm not sure about that, honestly, but maybe it was a good thing that you didn't get registered.
Well, it is now.
Considering they're shutting down, yeah.
Right, right. But I thought it was just a special, like, for Mozilla employees and their close acquaintances. You know, like, I thought that's what it was, because when I went looking to see how to sign up, that's what it felt like. And, once I was like, oh, I can't get on there, I just ended up on Mastodon.social, which, if you're on the Fediverse for any length of time, someone will scream at you to get off of Mastodon.social.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, give it 30 minutes, someone will tell you.
Well, I mean, I actually started on Mastodon.technology, but like the Mozilla social, that went away too. And, and it was a good instance, lots of technology-minded folks, so it was a good spot. Wasn't terrible. If you're really into the browser space, if you will, Vivaldi has a Mastodon thing that you could join up to.
Matter of fact, they were pretty quick to say on the Fediverse that it is not in any plan to shut Vivaldi.social down.
That's correct.
So they are fully committed to their Fediverse presence, and by extension, everybody on Vivaldi.social's Fediverse presence. So that's a fantastic thing.
That's a good place.
I am saddened to hear that Mozilla.social's gone. Well, will be gone soon enough.
Yeah. I agree with you. I mean, there's a lot of other places to go. It is unfortunate, though.
Yeah. Many folks will say this is indicative of a larger Mozilla movement in the, Mozilla's killing stuff off, right? On purpose.
But I mean, all right, so here's my hot take on that. I don't know that that's a terrible thing if they change the focus from, some of these extraneous things and get back to business.
What is business? What is Mozilla's business?
I feel like like the browser, like that's the foundation of what a lot of this revolves around. I mean, I know it's about making a better, internet, if you will. That is certainly a focus, and having your own social, network could help aid that. I'm not disputing it, but
it fell perfectly into their ethos, man.
It does seem like, but I mean, I guess if it's too much to maintain, I don't know. It's a graceful exit, I suppose. They didn't just like turn it off. They gave you like 6 months, almost 4 or 5 months. I don't know.
They should have given us 60 years, and then I would have been like, okay, that's long enough. The Fediverse is long dead. It was dead 30 years ago. Yet Mozilla.social is still strong.
Well, if you remember, Mastodon had a huge uptick when, some of the shenanigans were happening with, at that time, Twitter. So that's when Mastodon had a huge uptick, and I don't know that it's sustained. I still do think it's a good place to be, and it has got some steady traction now, but I don't know that it's growing like it once was. So maybe we don't need as many instances as that are out there.
Well, the people that shout about getting off of Mastodon.social would absolutely 1,000% disagree with you. They would really love to see very small instances that are flourishing. We're talking 50, 100. And by the way, Mozilla.social had like maybe 260 or something. That's a rough guesstimate. I think that's about right,
not a lot. That's not huge.
But I think that's the perfect size for a lot of the people that are like, we don't need big instances. Yeah. It's bad for the Fediverse to have that many people on a single instance, because if one of those goes down, half of the Fediverse goes with it,
Right. I mean, that's fair.
Yeah, so I mean, the small instance gang, I get it. I don't disagree with it, though. I kind of set up shop, and I don't really want to move because, but
I did that once. It wasn't terrible. It actually went pretty smooth, but
I just
don't want
I've done
to.
it as well. Exactly. Yeah, exactly, man. a bit of good news on the Firefox front for the people that are biding their time to write the message about how Mozilla should actually focus on the browser and absolutely nothing else. There are some good stuff coming. There is good stuff coming. In 130 that released September 4th, so a few weeks ago, there are quite a few things, right? Like the translation thing that they put out. You can just highlight text now and right-click on it and click Translate to.
Yep.
The number of languages, I think, is like 8 right now.
And like we talked about this before too, the translation stuff, it stays, on your machine. It's not farming that out to somewhere else on the internet. So that's really nice. I think the way that works is pretty slick.
Yes. So fantastic. This is stuff that doesn't exist in all of the Chromiums.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, there's add-ons you can get, and there's obviously web pages you can go to do all of your translation bits. But no, this is far better. Way better.
Yeah.
And it actually works really, really well. I've used it on some Framasoft stuff, but a lot of it is in French, right? And they produce great stuff like PeerTube and other things. I try to keep up with what they've got going on, but it's in French, and I can't really speak that much French nor read it. So it helps a lot with that, and it does a great job with translation.
Oh, for sure. For sure. So, I mean, it's good stuff. There's definitely 1,000% development going into Firefox. I mean, and this is just mainly for those folks that are like, Firefox is dead. Why aren't you just focusing on Firefox? They are. Seriously, look, there's release notes every time. Every time the release notes has new stuff.
Yep.
And then, so like, there's definitely new stuff, but then the new stuff says the phrase AI, and then everybody's on a different tangent about why Firefox is on fire. So, so there's an AI chatbot feature that you can turn on, right? And
yeah, but most of the browsers have that, so what's the difference?
Well, extremely true. I mean, Google's got Gemini. Bing has got, what is it? Edge has got Bing Chat. What is that one? Is it called, it's just Bing now, isn't it?
Copilot?
Is it Copilot in the browser? I thought it was like, I thought you were actually talking to Bing.
Yeah, maybe. It's not Cortana.
Is Bing a thing?
I can tell you that. They should have kept that
Not
name.
anymore. They should have kept that name. I mean, but I played Halo when I was younger.
I know,
so
me too.
I'm partial to it.
Yeah. I like to pretend I'm the Master Chief. Anyway.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. One day in space. But AI chatbot feature, man. Like, okay, I get it. Not everybody wants an AI chatbot feature, which is why you have to go enable it.
Right.
It's not just on. You got to go enable the thing if you want the thing, right? So
they're a little more open about it than others, so that's kind of nice.
And then Linux specific, right? All of the operating systems, Windows and I say all of them, right? Windows and Mac have this thing called overscroll animations, which is whenever you like two-finger scroll all the way down to the bottom of an article and you scroll some more, the page kind of springs up a little bit and then falls back into place. Rubber bands.
Yep.
Now Linux gets that too. I know this is not a feature that just absolutely everybody was clamoring for. It's a bit disorienting if you're not expecting it, but it's something that puts it on parity, on the same footing as Firefox and every other platform.
I think that's important. Having parity on all the platforms, that's a pretty big deal. Yeah.
Right. Honestly, it's disorienting for me to not have it because I use Mac and Windows in equal measure outside of the Linux usage that I have, right? Which is still all the time. I'm on computers too often.
Yeah.
Right. But so it's disorienting for me in the other direction, right? So I like that kind of, and these are not. Before we were starting this up, I was saying, these are not easy features to implement. They might seem easy, but I mean, there's a team of people that are developing and testing and putting this through testing to actually get it out to the millions of people that use Firefox on the daily.
Yeah.
That takes time and effort. I don't know how much faster you can possibly go. I've read the Mythical Man Month. You can't just...
That's it. You can't just throw people at it. Yeah, that doesn't work.
And make it go faster. That is not how development works.
There's diminishing returns on all of that, right?
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't see it. I don't see what a lot of those folks see when they see Firefox. I mean, okay, maybe it's going in the wrong direction, according to some. But
is the quality of the product the reason for the change in market share or lack of change in market share? I don't think so, right? I think the quality of the product is still pretty great.
Firefox lost. They lost that browser war years ago.
Yeah.
Years ago. And the real hot take about all of this is they will never, no matter what they do, no matter how many of the feature requests get implemented that people submit, that, if someone had a magic wand and were able to wave that magic wand and make Firefox exactly what everybody wanted, they would still have lost the war, and that will never, it will not come back. I talk to people from all walks of life, man. Software developers, students, and everybody in between. And they tell me they just use Chrome. Not for some social reason, not for, because, Chrome has the most amount of features, or Chrome integrates in with this, or Chrome runs this website. It's because they don't care.
Yeah.
Chrome won when Google started hawking Chrome.
Yeah, and everybody uses Google, that's for sure.
Exactly, and so it was upgrade your browser to Chrome. And then they clicked it, and they got Chrome, and now they're on Chrome, and now they'll always be on Chrome. Just because Chrome is what they know.
Yeah.
And there is no amount of features, no amount of development that Mozilla or Firefox specifically could do to change that.
But I'm not giving up on it, and I don't think they should either. I really appreciate what they do produce, and there's some things that, technical things that I have as a takeaway that are my reasoning to continue. I think the biggest things are, well, with Manifest v3, like getting shoved down our throat over there, uBlock Origin still continues to work just fantastic over here in Firefox land.
Right, exactly.
And that is one of the top reasons why I use Firefox.
And one of the things about that is that, have you seen the numbers? A very small contingent of Chrome users use any add-on whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right? So they're used to ads. This is not a thing that they do. Like for me, surfing the web without an ad blocker feels gross.
Some of the ads I can deal with. That's just fine. I don't mind supporting things. I think the ones that get me are the intrusive ones.
When you go to a news site and it just starts blaring at you about a news article, that's not even the article that you of the page that you're on.
Yeah, pop-up videos. And it's totally worse in the mobile experience. It's totally worse there because you can't get away from it. You don't have enough screen real estate to try to skirt your way around.
Oh my God.
Things,
have you ever tried to hit that little tiny X button and you click
easy.
the link?
Oh.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yep.
Yeah. But, most of the people are having that general experience on the desktop or laptop or whatever, tablet as well, just because they don't use ad blockers. People don't use ad blockers.
Yep.
Yeah, but I'm with you. I'm going to continue being a Firefox user because I think Firefox is the best browser on the market. Nothing compares. I know that there are some features that exist in Vivaldi or exist in Opera, like we were talking about in the last episode. But I'm keen to wait. I'm fine. Vertical tabs is coming, right?
Yeah. No, they've got some great tab features, I think, that are the things that Firefox users have been clamoring about for a long time because we see them in other browsers and say, hey, I want some of that too.
Right. And I can go get an add-on and make that a reality, but I'd like Firefox to do it right. Yeah. And not that the add-on doesn't do it right. I just don't want extra code, right? Give me the whole code base and bless it, and I'll use that.
Yeah, and going back to the translate, that was one of the things that was an add-on at one point, and now is integrated. The other thing is the multi-account container tab stuff. That was also an add-on too, but it's also now right there. So
good.
There's a few things that have been those extension things, and now are part of the browser, and I'm anxiously, awaiting some of these other tab features that they're working on.
Yeah. So browser war is lost, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop using Firefox.
It doesn't mean good things aren't coming. Yeah.
Right. I use Firefox for the same reasons that I use Linux, and I'm not going to stop using either.
Me neither. And if you love looking at our face, you can catch that on YouTube. And then you can catch all the great little video elements that Leo pops into the thing, with the little, pictures.
There's one coming.
There was a Mozilla, logo thing that just popped up a minute ago. You missed it if you weren't watching on YouTube.
Scroll back, listen to the rant again.
Rewind. There it is. Anyway, so YouTube's the place for that. If you love the history bits that we do, we got one coming up right here real soon.
That's right.
That'll show up on Tilvids, which is an edutainment PeerTube instance. And, somebody asked about, hey, the latest episode wasn't there. No, we don't do the whole episodes over there. We try to be somewhat respectful for the amount of space that we, get for free, and try not to put too much of a load on servers and all of that we don't have control of. Maybe
I did the math the other day. I think our videos, we'd end up with something like 150 or 200 gigabytes of output. And raw output,
right?
Like the raw output of what we record and stuff is much bigger than that. But the actual output that we place everywhere comes out to something like that much a season.
Yeah.
So that much a year, I guess. And man, just hosting that ourselves is an exorbitant amount of money.
It could be.
Yeah. Try to be respectful of
exactly.
Tilvids, what they're freely giving us, and they don't have to. By any stretch at all.
We really appreciate their support. We really do. So
for sure. So go scroll over on Tilvids if you haven't. Check it out. There's some good stuff over there.
Yep. So that breaks down into just the history bits, and we publish those over there. So if you just want to get the boiled down history bits, that's over there. And obviously, if you love us a lot, then you can give us $1 or $2, and you can do that at Patreon.
That's right.
All the links in linuxuserspace.show.
If the 90s was the true decade of Linux, then the 2000s was the decade of the derivatives. A decade filled with taking the older stalwart distributions of Linux and spinning them into something that refined them. The Linux veterans were mostly fine with refining what they had internally, but a batch of newcomers wanted progress. And progress, however fast or slow, is never quick enough or in the right direction for some. So, from Debian, there was Ubuntu. From Red Hat, there was Fedora. From Slackware, there was Slacks. And from SUSE, there were about 7 different ways to write and pronounce SUSE. Now, looking around the Linux landscape with a GPL here and an MIT license there, an odd feeling arises that this derivation process never really stopped. And that feeling would be right. There's a new distribution popping up every week, it seems. Some out of frustration, some out of love, and some out of practicality. One might also notice that to support all this Linuxing, blogs, forums, and help sites are everywhere. And that's really where this story begins. At a place called linuxforums.org. Built around 2002 on the 2-year-old at the time tried and true PHP BB forum software, it was obviously for users of Linux. New, old, admins and otherwise, all were welcome. Over the next 3 years, it had its ups and downs, but gathered quite a following until it was handed off to new ownership at the end of 2005. Before the turn of the year, a call for writers that would author articles on Linux at $300 for a couple thousand words showed up on the site and garnered the interest of a developer by the name of Clement Lefebvre, who we'll just call Clem. After writing a few articles for Linux forums, Clem decided that hosting some of these articles himself, rather than letting Linux forums have all the fun, would be in his best interest. But a name. You have to have a good name. Something cool. Fresh. Maybe like some type of mint? And with that, LinuxMint.com was born. A place for cool and fresh articles about Linux. And while the articles did well, it was the distribution tinkering that Clem was writing about that really got people talking. The distribution was Ubuntu, Clem's favorite at the time, twisting it, turning it, and adding value to it. Now, whether you remember this or not, Ubuntu, when it started, took the freedom stance very seriously. And before the patent expired, MP3s were a contentious topic in Linux. Could a distribution support MP3 out of the box? Should they? What would Stallman think? Some Linuxes at the time did support MP3 out of the box, though, like PC Linux OS, but most didn't, including Ubuntu. Of course, that made Clem's how to add MP3 support to your Linux distribution very, very popular. There were others, too. Did you know that widescreen monitors were tricky to get working at the time? The square aspect ratio was king, and that meant you had to get down in the weeds to wrangle X to support anything that wasn't square, by hand. May Xenia help you if you didn't make backups of your configuration. The article did quite well too. In less than a year, though, all of these fixes, recommendations, and tweaks that could have been defaults, Clem saw another opportunity, but certainly one he never intended. The calls for a distro that just included this stuff were getting louder and louder, and he was in a unique position to provide one. Soon after picking up the pen, efforts were split between articles and a new distro release of LinuxMint.com, based on Kubuntu, the KDE 3 flavor of Ubuntu. It supported the two big wants, media compatibility and widescreen capabilities. It also shipped with a new look. Clem said about the look and feel.
One of the major differences between Kubuntu and Linux Mint is the artwork. In Mint, the idea is to use the most popular pieces of artwork from kdelook.org and fit them together in a nice and consistent way.
Out in August of 2006, this would be version 1.0 beta, codenamed Ada. 3 months later, Kubuntu and the KDE 3 desktop were dropped in favor of Ubuntu and the GNOME 2 desktop. Version 2.0 of Linux Mint was released in November with the codename Barbara. And like its upstream Ubuntu, the alphabetical progression of codename releases was set. 2.0 also added more quality of life improvements with the addition of Flash, Java, and Real Player installed by default, and the Amarok media player as opposed to Rhythmbox, the default at the time. With B version 2.1, the next month, defaults that are still present today begin to show up, like an IRC client that connects automatically to Linux Mint channels for easy support, and a Firefox feature that allows going back a page by using the backspace key. This feature was quite prominent in other OSs at the time. Bianca version 2.2 showed up early in 2007 with a KDE and Lite edition to satisfy folks on the forums asking for alternatives. And Clem said of the versions,
"The first version had no goals at all. It was something I experimented with. After that, feedback shaped versions 2.0, 2.1, and 2.2. It's only after Linux Mint 2.2 Bianca that things got serious. The biggest goal for me is to make sure each release is the best release to date. It might sound funny, but it's not always easy to achieve. Things move fast upstream. Technologies change. My main concern is to continue to provide to people what they like and to get closer to a better desktop, to make it easier and more pleasant to use each time."
And Cassandra, version 3.0, followed up over May and June with an additional XFCE version 2. Mint also continued its commitment to fully functioning by including Windows NTFS support to ease the transition to Linux and help those in multi-OS situations. Software, wobbly windows, and other niceties were the hallmark of Mint. Selena 3.1 followed up with a Mint-maintained Firefox package and Mint's very own package manager, apt, which is not the same as the apt-you-know, and 4.0, Darina, and a website revamp was released before the year was out. One of the controversial changes in 4.0 was the update stability ranking system that left kernel patches out of the mix to prioritize a working system. And while it certainly achieved a working system more often than not, dissatisfaction with the foregoing of security by default would begin to bubble up here. And talk of a Debian edition had been popping up here and there, and by the end of the year, it was nearly ready. Clem said,
"We started with the Debian edition. The first reason was to show that the technology we develop is distinct from the upstream components it sits on top of. The second reason is simply that we did try most alternative components and that our selection was driven and justified by the tests we made. We do not plan to make our own base and do not plan to change our base to Debian or Fedora, but experimenting with these new bases will give us a better appreciation of the pros and cons related to using Ubuntu, and eventually a better idea of what can be achieved in the long term, or in case Ubuntu goes towards a direction we do not want to follow."
Elisa, version 5, with no minor versions to follow, was released in mid-2008 and was the first time a long-time support release was marked. 3 years of never having to upgrade. It was a shift to long-term stability rather than innovation. And with that, Elisa would be boring, including the new Fluxbox edition. Felicia at 6, Gloria at 7, and Helena at 8 were all released between the end of 2008 and early 2010. An LXDE version showed up at this point too. A new long-term support release at 9 with Isadora beginning in late 2010, and 2 releases followed with Julia at 10 and Katya at 11 in mid-2011, with a Linux Mint Debian edition nestled in between it all. Underneath the surface, though, conversation had already started about what to do about the new GNOME 3. It wasn't moving in the direction that Linux Mint saw itself wanting to go, and Ubuntu, its upstream, had already been making plans to move to Unity in their next release. In the short term, GNOME 3 would be adopted, but made minty by the addition of the Mint GNOME Shell extensions, or MGSE. It allowed disablement, so a normal GNOME 3 session could be had, but without going that extra step, it would be Mint as usual, with a few visual cues that anything was really different. Mate would also be available in the upcoming release as a fallback and continuation of everything Mint built without too much compromise. Lisa, version 12, with these 2 desktop options, was released in November.
Some people don't understand how important GNOME was for us. It was by far the most popular and most mature desktop environment. It was a huge component for us. We have a vision, and no matter what happens, we get things done. Linux Mint 12 was hugely impacted, and it shipped with an early version of Mate and set of GNOME Shell extensions, which roughly did the job, but weren't any long-term solution.
And so the story of Cinnamon begins at the end of 2011. GNOME 2 was dead. Mate filled the gaps, but there was no denying that the future was GNOME 3. Such is the life of a developer that relies on a major component living upstream. But a vision is a vision, and that meant forward progress. The work that went into the shell extensions would lead the way into Cinnamon development. With testing done on version 12, that meant that Linux Mint 13, a fresh new long-term support release, would be the first recipient of Cinnamon out of the box. Maya, version 13, was released in May 2012.
I'll probably always have fond memories of Linux Mint 13 as it marks the end of the drama and the recovery from the loss of GNOME for us. Maya is also my daughter's name, so that adds to it even more.
With that release, Linux Mint became much more than a good Linux distro with sane defaults and a great experience. There was really no denying it before, even though many tried, but Linux Mint was now an entire operating system. Developing the tools it needed regardless of what upstream did, making things portable so other bases could use them, making highly opinionated decisions on behalf of its users. Not every step was a good one, but forward Mint marched, now with Cinnamon and Mate at its side. And forward meant change. More of it. Moving to a GNOME 3 base meant taking a lot of the changes that GNOME made and keeping them, changing them, or outright starting over. Cinnamon has always been a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Nemo was no different. Forked from Nautilus, GNOME's file manager, it was announced in September and quickly added back many of the features that were missing in the switch from GNOME 2 to GNOME 3's Nautilus. Over the next year, Cinnamon and Nemo continued to receive more and more features to catch up to GNOME. And while not all users of the OS liked this tumultuous time, some leaving for greener pastures, no one could say that things weren't getting better. Reviews in Linux Format magazine heralding it as the best distro of 2012. Lifehacker, TechRadar, and Linux User and Developer gave glowing reviews, and blog post after forum post backed all the hype up. Around this time, only Ubuntu proper seemed to have more inertia. Starting in late 2012, Nadia at version 14, Olivia at 15, and Petra at 16 came and went, each with an updated Ubuntu base and related improvements, which all came out by the end of 2013. So while 2.0 was getting backported to the previous releases, in April of 2014, Cinnamon 2.2 was released in preparation for the upcoming release of Linux Mint. Better settings, power management, hot corners, high DPI, and tablet support were just some of the many updates in this cycle. The first Mint in the 17 line was Kiana, and it came with that Cinnamon 2.2. This meant better edge tiling, snapping, and came with easily configurable sound effects. Nemo also got an uplift in performance. Displays were easier to adjust, and the system tray was packed with information. It would eventually be backported to Petra and even Maya, the previous LTS. Now, version 17 was a big departure from the versioning up until now. No longer would Mint follow every release of Ubuntu. Instead, Mint's major revision would coincide with Ubuntu's long-term support release every 2 years. The point releases afterward would roughly and inadvertently coincide with Ubuntu's point releases, but would really target changes within Mint and Cinnamon rather than within Ubuntu.
The decision was made to stick to the LTS basis. In other words, the development team will be focused on the very same package base used by Linux Mint 17 for the next 2 years. It will also be trivial to upgrade from version 17 to 17.1, then 17.2, and so on. Important applications will be backported, and we expect this change to boost the pace of our development and reduce the amount of regressions in each new Linux Mint release.
After Kiana, though, Q names were hard to come by, so Rebecca, Rafaela, and Rosa were chosen instead. Later in 2014, Cinnamon 2.4 was released with better memory management, responsiveness, and Nemo got custom icons and emblems. To underscore the growing popularity of Mint and Cinnamon, calls at the end of 2014 for switching from the main repository to a mirror grew louder and louder. Otherwise, your chance for a timeout during update was quite high. The next year in June, Cinnamon 2.6 was released with better multi-monitor support, more screensaver option panel improvements, more intuitive settings, and some accessibility improvements. Nemo got a plugin manager and a better file operation display. In November, Cinnamon 2.8 gained a power applet to show battery life of all batteries attached to the system, a more informative sound applet, and a preview when hovering over an application on the panel, something Windows 7 had had for quite a while. Nemo got a quick rename, which is a way to rename files by clicking on them. Another Windows-esque improvement. In the run-up to the Linux Mint 18 releases in late February 2016, the Linux Mint domain was attacked and had tainted ISO links added to the download section of the site. This didn't affect wary users that used torrents, or even those that used a direct HTTP link to the ISO files, but those that happened to click on the Cinnamon Edition link on the site around that time. The issue was quickly cleaned up, processes were changed, but, oh boy, the news remained. Looking ahead, though, the focus was again on version 18 and a new fixation on XApps. GNOME was moving in a different direction again, but the link between Cinnamon and its GNOME counterpart was solid. In 17, applications were downgraded to prevent them from breaking during upgrades of GNOME upstream, patched, or just replaced with alternatives from the Mate or XFCE world. Those were temporary solutions, though. XApps was the future. apps written by the Mint team for everything.
The idea of working on apps which would be generic, perfectly suited to run in both Cinnamon, Mate, and XFCE, and possibly other desktop environments made more sense. It's an idea we've had for a while. With the start of a new Mint 18.x series, the timing was right to get this project started. XApps will be a collection of generic GTK3 applications using traditional interfaces which can be used as default desktop components in Cinnamon, Mate, and XFCE.
A few months later, Cinnamon 3.0 was released, targeted to Mint 18 based on Ubuntu 16.04, with better touchpad support, more animations, and better window management. This would also come with a new theme that, for Mint users, was a bit of a shock, as noted by Clem. The theme was flat, which would modernize the look and feel of Mint and Cinnamon. This included some new icons. At the end of June, Linux Mint 18 Sarah was released. Serena, Sonia, and Sylvia were to follow. In September, a new website dedicated to hosting all the plugins that Cinnamon could use called Spices was announced and noted some of the newer features that would land in Cinnamon 3.2 for the Serena release. When it dropped in November, it included vertical panel support, a cleaned-up menu, and some eye candy. For Sonia, Cinnamon 3.4 with better icon management on the desktop, and came with improvements that stabilized Cinnamon and made it much easier to continue that work by separating out processes so issues can be fixed easier. For Sylvia, Cinnamon 3.6 with better account integration, touchpad compatibility, a Cinnamon Spices revamp, and a better on-screen keyboard. This was also the release that brought a revamped software manager and Flatpak to the Mint ecosystem, and enabled FlatHub by default, making applications previously unavailable present and ready to install. The next big leap would be on a new Ubuntu base in 2018, and came with a much welcome and needed change to the updating of Mint systems. With the introduction of a backup and rollback software named Timeshift in 18.3, but solidified in Mint 19, codenamed Terra, released in June, the Mint team could relax their "don't break anything" requirement and felt safe opening up and pushing all updates to the system. And this included even the kernel updates that previously might have broke something. Linux Mint 19 also marked the death of the KDE edition, which allowed the devs to focus solely on the GTK side of things and better support the remaining Cinnamon, Mate, and XFCE desktops. Cinnamon at 3.8 brought performance, faster file search, and the ability to amplify sound over 100%. Starting at the end of 2018, the next few releases of Mint, Tessa, Tina, and Trisha all came with their respective version bumps of Cinnamon, with Tessa getting the major version bump of Cinnamon 4.0. Another wild change appeared in the form of a panel revamp. No longer would it take the Windows 95 to Windows XP style traditional panel, but a slightly more modern Windows 7 style metaphor with icon-only style shortcuts across the panel with window previews to differentiate instances of the same application. It would take some getting used to for some loyal Mint fans, but as the Mint team does, there's always a way to take a step back and take the older, beaten path. Mint also gained the ability to switch kernels, and XApps were coming along nicely. In August of 2019, Tina made its debut with improvements to Mint like better update manager that helps you keep track of support, and a system report tool to get help. Cinnamon 4.2 saw greater performance boosts in the overall desktop, menus, and even got built-in Samba support. Trisha in December saw Nemo and panel improvements in Cinnamon 4.4, and Mint got a system troubleshooter and even better high DPI support. In the later half of 19's development, the Snaps distribution model made a big splash on the Ubuntu side by making it the only way to get Chromium. It would no longer be available as a deb. This started a chain reaction downstream in Mint that would eventually block Snaps altogether.
As you install apt updates, Snap becomes a requirement for you to continue to use Chromium and installs itself behind your back. This breaks one of the major worries many people had when Snap was announced and a promise from its developers that it would never replace apt.
In 2020, Linux Mint 20, codenamed Uliana, was released in June based on Ubuntu's 20.04 and started a trend that continues today. A look at how Linux Mint can contribute to the wider Linux ecosystem. More than it already was, I mean. So applications that were easily portable were starting to show up, like Warpinator, an application to send files from one Linux machine to another. It just needed someone to take it and package it up wherever it needs to be. This was sucked up by FlatHub pretty quickly. There was also support for NVIDIA Optimus. Cinnamon 4.6 came along for the ride and introduced fractional scaling. Ulissa brought another couple of applications in January of 2021 called Web Apps and Hypnotics. Web Apps did what Firefox no longer wanted to, PWAs, or Progressive Web Apps. In other words, your web-only application can be a button for your desktop and run in its own little container. Nifty. Hypnotics is an online TV player. Cinnamon 4.8 brought faster rendering at higher resolutions, better spices support, and better searching in the menu. Uma in July featured Cinnamon 5.0 with multi-layer searching in Nemo. You can even use regular expressions. As always, performance bumps and the ability to better manage spices. And while Linux aficionados do their real file renaming in the terminal, an application called Bulk File Renamer shows up to do the same job on the desktop. Warpinator also found its way to Android, and the Update Manager in Mint gained the ability to update the entire list of spices, Flatpaks, and regular packages all in one. Una, in January of 2022, brought the weirdly named Thingy to manage your reading and keeps track of your progress and sticky notes for the desktop. But most importantly, Cinnamon 5.2 with its focus on the calendar in the panel. It now shows lots of visual information and integrates with things like Google Calendar. Linux Mint 21, named Vanessa, released in July of 2022, is based on Ubuntu 22.04, the long-term support release, and keeps the slow, steady pace of Linux Mint and Cinnamon development moving forward, all with a shiny new base. Mint got some slight improvements all around, but Cinnamon 5.4 got a major rebase as a result of the new system base. Most of the underpinning software like Muffin had been updated to be almost at parity with Upstream. This necessitated a new display settings window. Older themes no longer worked, and a generally crisp look and feel all around. The real changes start soon. Vera in December brought Cinnamon 5.6, and 5.6 brought the corner bar. Down at the bottom right edge by default, it replaces the Show Desktop button traditionally on most panels, but also has a few configurable tricks up its sleeve too. And Nemo, when highlighting, only highlights names without darkening the icons too, along with a few other visual cues to help readability. Mint got itself a new mouse cursor and an updated look with color. Victoria in July of 2023 brought better visibility in menus and an updated software manager, while Cinnamon 5.8 got a new style picker that simplifies theming down to 1 or 2 clicks. Notifications now support the selected accent color too, and touchpad gestures are built right in. Virginia at the beginning of 2024 brings Cinnamon 6, and with it introduces the new type of cinnamon spice called Action. These were available in Nemo but are now exposed further. They're typically found in the right-click menu and can be things like verify an ISO with its hash. 6.0 brought rudimentary Wayland support, and Mint saw most of its work done in its applications. With a new LTS, Ubuntu 24.04 released, it's time for a major revision of Linux Mint 2. Version 22, named Wilma, brought more localization and translation. The introduction of Matrix, as the previously used IRC client had gone unmaintained for quite some time. Rather than revive it, the Mint team decided Matrix was a much more modern way to connect and get help. Not that the IRC went away, mind you. Cinnamon 6.2 got some simple updates by the way of a menu editor to control all of the actions introduced in the previous version of Mint.
Outside of Mint, Cinnamon looks pretty ugly.
So, Cinnamon 6.4 will end up with a much-needed facelift. And moving forward, X-apps will get a lot more attention, so they're available easily outside of Cinnamon and the Linux Mint ecosystem. Advait will really get a run for its money.
You can catch all the great topics as they unfold on our Lemmy subreddit or news channel on Discord. If you want all the great links, you can go to Linux user space /Lemmy, Reddit, Discord, Mastodon, Telegram, Matrix, Twitch, Twitter. You get the idea. It's all there.
That's linuxuserspace.show.
That's right. linuxuserspace.show /Lemmy/Reddit/Discord.
All the things.
Know, they're there. And if you get confused, just go to linuxuserspace.show. There's links on the top where you can click on them, and it'll take you to the magic place.
We've been on Linux Mint for a little while. Well, you for how long? How long have you
Well, all right. So let's be fair here. I used Cinnamon. That was the big thing, right?
That's right. I misspoke.
You did.
And so Cinnamon.
But that being said, I did test the beta when they were, first announced the upcoming release of Linux Mint. That was one of the ways I did test Cinnamon. I've really been rocking Ubuntu Cinnamon for some time now. I originally started to help out and do some testing, and I hang out into the support Telegram room there, and so I thought it'd be a good idea to have something that I could use to reference and whatnot.
So you've got a personal stake in Ubuntu Cinnamon then?
I guess so. Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I'm in the Ubuntu verse. There's no doubt about that. And so, I've just got an install as a VM, so it's nothing, too extravagant, if you will. But right. I do. One of the things I like about the Ubuntu Cinnamon version is it's nicely themed. It looks good. It's pretty cohesive. I don't have all the apps though, which is probably one of the biggest benefits to Linux Mint, honestly. I think, I know you've been using Linux Mint since quite some time.
Yeah, so off and on over the years, but I think full-time since about 2017-ish.
Okay, that's some time.
So initially, I was on Linux Mint. It had to have been around one of the earlier versions because it was, I had this little Sony Vaio laptop that is a little 10-incher. It was tiny. It was nice. I mean, it was one of the smallest ones I could get my hands on at the time. This is even before PCs came out, right? Yep. And I went through a lot of the stuff that we talked about in the history. The media codecs thing, reason I originally tried Linux Mint was because I didn't want to have to figure out how to, it turns out it was just one command. I just needed to run one command in Ubuntu. But but Mint had not only the codecs thing, and even Clem laments that that's why Linux Mint got kind of popular right at the very beginning. But I think had it gone any other way, Mint may not have become the distro it is today. I think that initial, here it is, but it's easy, is really what sparked its popularity early on. Right. And it got me too, right? So I just didn't want to fiddle with it. But the other thing, especially about that laptop, is this is around 2006, 2007, right? So you got to remember, back then, widescreen monitors of any kind did not work out of the box.
Oh, yeah.
And even on Windows, they were fiddly.
Yep.
So you had to have the right thing, otherwise it would stretch it and it would get weird.
Yeah.
So in Linux, you had to actually go in and hand configure the Xorg conf to notice that you could actually paint the screen on more pixels, right?
Right.
Over the years, that got fixed, and there was auto detection.
Much better now,
It all kind of wrote itself. But early on, you didn't. You had to go in there and manually muck with it yourself. And Mint did that for me automatically as well. So, I mean, these are two problems that when you installed the easy distro at the time, which was Ubuntu, you still had to go in and hand tinker a lot of things. And Mint just solved that for me. And once I was in, I was kind of hooked.
Right.
And while, if Linux were my home full time back then, it would have been Mint. But
that makes sense.
Linux, not a Mint thing, but just Linux in general was just not in a place that I could use at the time.
Yeah, well, the application availability was a problem for a lot of people. There's no doubt
Pretty
about that.
abysmal back then.
Until things like Flatpaks and stuff came along, that made it harder, right? Even though Ubuntu and Debian, their repositories are chock full of stuff, probably much more than a lot of other distributions, especially at that time. And that was some of the draw. But I mean, until some of the mainstream things really started to get more widely available, and I even mean like some proprietary things like Discord and stuff like that a lot of people somewhat rely on for whatever reason. Until those things became easily available, Linux was a hard place to land for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it was off and on for probably the next 10 years or so, maybe 8 years or so. But once I came back, it was not very long. I mean, obviously, I did me a whole, just like I think most people do when they kind of try and figure out
you do
Linux
a little hopping.
And they're a bit of a tinkerer. Yeah, you do a little hopping, right? You stay on this one for a little bit, swap to this one, swap to this one. But once I hit Mint again, I was like, oh, wait a minute. I remember this one.
It's a good solid place to land. Yeah.
It was, And after I hit Mint, every time after that, it was pretty much this is not quite as good as Mint. So, back to Mint.
I mean, so that's your reference. That's what you're building up, or, trying to compare to, for sure.
Right. And then I would see another new shiny and I would go check that out, but I would come back to Mint. Another new shiny and back to Mint. And this would happen over and over for a couple of years until about 2018 when it was just like, all right, fine. I'll do a little hopping on the side, but Mint is just the place for me. And I mean, I'm definitely a tinkerer. I'm definitely one to not be afraid to get into the configuration file and make it be the way I want it to be. But there was just something I think Mint had that nobody else had, which was just a bit of a just works kind of attitude, right? It was one of the very few distros at the time that added a bit of the kitchen sink. That wasn't everything, but
no, there's some value add stuff though, for sure.
Everything you expected to work worked, and it continued to work version after version after version. So it just made it inescapable for me.
Yeah, and I think the X apps and stuff, they make the complete ecosystem, and that's really the shining thing for it, honestly.
Yeah. So my how'd it go? Dan's, yours. Did you do it through the break?
Yeah. No, I did,
so,
and it's been good, and I like. I forget. Did they did an alpha release before the beta release, and I did that too, I think, as far as Linux Mint. So I've tested it, and I'll say this: we talked about this alpha release for anything that comes from Clem. Really is probably equivalent to a lot of other people's release candidate type stuff.
Yeah,
it's
seriously,
it's usually
man,
pretty solid. There's some things, and sometimes it's mentioned, and there's probably some other things that get picked up, but you don't see a lot of change, generally speaking, and it usually works really well.
Breaking change. It's
solid.
Rare for even a breaking change to make it to the beta. There have been, of course, no one's perfect, but man, the quality, I think, is just another thing that makes me keep coming back.
Yeah, and so they talk about, the pace at which they're developing, and I think the thing is when you deliver a pretty good solid product in like an alpha or, a beta or something like that, then it can help speed it up, or at least make it seem like it's really sped up, because there isn't a whole lot to do after that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. So your how'd it go lasted a couple of months as opposed to just one.
Yeah.
Like we normally do.
Right.
And mine lasted approximately 7 years.
Yeah. You got me beat on that.
If we go in contiguous chunks, right?
Well,
7 years.
I can't say that I haven't touched it in probably the same amount of time. Like I've certainly, it was probably one of the things I did hop to, and I don't know why it didn't stick, but it didn't stick. So, I mean, there
Yeah.
you go. I probably just went back to the base of Ubuntu and lived there. You know what I mean?
And that was actually a lot of my hops would be, okay, is Ubuntu finally good enough for me to get away from Linux Mint? Because I did like Unity, man.
Right.
I liked Unity a lot. Even though, they went through the whole Amazon kerfuffle and everything else, and, the people that liked Unity never spoke up until Unity was about to die. That whole thing, right? Yeah. There are two groups, by the way, right? People that hated Unity, those were the vocal people when Unity was going on.
Right.
And the people that loved Unity, and they didn't speak up until it was too late. So
it's gone, yeah. Well, I mean, it's not gone. It's back again, right? It's official flavor and whatnot, and that's fine.
Exactly.
But so same. I probably did some of that, and certainly had used it enough to know what it was all about. And I do like the format, if you will. Panel on the bottom, typically, your menu things. I think the menu stuff in Mint in Cinnamon is pretty nice. It's probably a little more than I like, if you will.
Yeah.
I usually use the minimal.
Yeah, I think I've outgrown that menu,
Mm-hmm.
And that's actually one of the big reasons why I would hop. Right, like KRunner existed.
Oh yeah,
has for a while, and that is it, man. That is the way to find stuff when you don't know exactly what you're looking for. I think the Cinnamon menu is still pretty clumsy. Just like the Mate menu, and just like
similar.
the Whisker menu from XFCE and the LXDE, right? I mean, these are basic menus. So if you know the name of the thing that you want and you type it in, it'll find it. But if you get fuzzy, if you need anything that's not directly called by name, then you're kind of out of luck. And so on Linux Mint specifically, but on Cinnamon, I have to go with something else. And I think Albert is...
Yeah, that's a launcher. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yep. And it does the fuzzy thing, right? It finds files, even if you misspell them. It will do. You can turn them on, like it'll do web searching and everything. Like it's a KRunner
only
for a
universal.
GTK based desktop. Yeah, and it's just nice. So if I had one nitpick about Cinnamon, because I just can't think of any really good ones. If I had one good nitpick about Cinnamon, it would be that menu kind of sucks.
Well, maybe they just need a runner. Maybe that's the
they
fix,
do.
Right? So just build a runner, and that'd be cool if they built that. I mean, I think that would. I think you could do that and have it blend in and it'd be cohesive, like with all the other things, especially with all the other things they have going on. So
yeah, outside of like real third-party applications that I bring in with FlatHub or Flatpak, right? Like that's really the only thing I think. I could see that the desktop would, adding something to the desktop, that would be an improvement. That would be it. Everything else works as I expect it to. Like it's very obviously when you get dropped into it, a Windows 7, Windows 10 kind of paradigm.
Boring is good. I mean, in a way, right? You know what
consistency is good.
Because that's what you get. Yeah, you get consistency out of it and you know what to expect. Your expectations are, met with out of the box. So there's that. It's not crazy innovative, which is pretty good for a lot of people. They just want to get stuff done.
Right. And I think that's another reason why I really kind of with Cinnamon in general, but I mean especially with Linux Mint, that I got trapped because I could fully ignore the entire desktop and then just do what I need to do. Right? Like if that's waste 3 hours doom scrolling on the internet, I can do that and the interface doesn't get in my way. It should tell me, hey man, you've been doing this for an hour. You should probably stop. Is there an app for that?
There is.
Tell me what the Linux app for that is.
I don't know, but I know there is. There's got to be.
Okay. Like that's really just kind of it for me, man. Like it's invisible to me. And I think that's in my old age.
Yes, as you
these
turn
kids
into
on my lawn,
you turn into the graybeard. I gotcha.
This is what I want. I'm not a TUI or what? Not TUI. What is it? The window manager. I'm not a WIM kind of person, but I do like it when the desktop environment is just invisible to me.
Yeah.
And Cinnamon does a fantastic job because everything can just hide. Everything can go away. And then all that's left is just you and the app that you're trying to use.
I mean, so they still got some work ahead of them, right? I mean, so there's some things that are coming down the pipeline that they're kind of planning for. So like Wayland, that's a thing. And so they've got some experimental stuff happening there, right? That's good.
Oh,
they're keeping up with it.
Let me just speak to it real quick. The Wayland session, absolutely horrible.
Yeah, well, they mentioned that though, right?
But they're not saying it's ready. As a matter of fact, you have to go out of your way to actually enable it.
Yeah, that's true.
So no one will accidentally be on a Wayland session because it's not ready, right? Like, this is one of those things where it's testing. When it's ready,
they're working on it.
Right.
They're working on, the X apps, getting more of those, getting them to work right.
This is something. So Linux Mint has in some circles has got a rap for being very hostile to everybody.
Yeah.
And I think the snap thing really had a little bit to do with that, right? But we'll talk about the snap thing.
We will in
a
a minute.
Bit.
Yep.
But this move that they're making with X apps and fully separating them out from Mint development to just X app development is the absolute antithesis of that thesis, right? Mint, the team, everybody, they're just hostile to anybody else. This is going to be a boon to any desktop that runs off the GTK framework and needs applications, and they want them to look consistent.
Yep.
Basically, GNOME is all in on Advait.
Yep.
Anybody else that isn't in on Advait but also uses GTK, you're just kind of up a creek and your stuff's going to look weird unless this XApps thing really
got a
takes
good possibility.
off.
I mean, unless they're porting some of their applications to do some similar things, XApps will be the universal in a way. It'll be a universal thing that other desktops could probably add.
And Mint has this kind of collaboration, this kind of work, to almost 20 years of it under their belts. They know how to do this. Let the XApps thing happen.
Yeah.
And I think all of these other desktops can really focus on the development that they want to be developing on instead of having to develop yet another text editor. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, we need another one of those. Sure.
Right. But I do want to talk about the hostility, right?
Yeah.
Because the snaps thing, right?
Snaps
that
was the
really
thing.
brought it in to focus, and that it didn't look good, but
I've got a quote here. So July 2019 from Clem.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome.
He wrote it on a blog. It says, "You might wonder why I'm so outspoken about this all of a sudden. There's a certain sense of urgency which demands action on our side. Ubuntu is planning to replace the Chromium repository package with an empty package which installs the Chromium snap." Clem had a call there, and use the urgent word and strong language. It's all strong language here. And basically said that this is not what we're about. We're not going to change things behind your back. We're going to give you, what you asked for, essentially.
That's right.
And so that's the premise behind the whole thing. And that's why they're so firm about it. I can't say that that's a bad thing, but I also I think it's a bit of a misrepresentation that things were happening behind your back, necessarily. I mean, because you told it to install Chromium, and it did that. Even though it was a snap. I mean, does anybody really know when they go into a software center or something like that, what technology is behind that? No. They just want an application, right?
Counterpoint, I think there are a lot of people that use Linux Mint that are also technical users
that could be. Yep.
This idea of conservatism in your desktop, in your Linux, means that there's not another entire separate packaging system that comes in, and starts handling packages, right? I mean, if you want to get down to the tinkery thing, which is something Linux Mint allows you to do, you may or may not be happy about the fact that when you clicked on a button, it does the thing.
I'll rebut that a little bit with some of what Linux Mint does in the background is tinkery and does things without your knowledge. Their apt actually does different stuff.
Oh, that's right.
Than the normal apt, because it's a wrapper that's written in Python, and it calls other applications. It might call dpackage, it might call aptitude, it might call apt, or it might call apt-get. And so I will say they're enhancements probably to make it easier for the user, but it's doing some stuff that you probably don't know. And especially
a little other side of the coin there. I didn't think about that. That's true. Yeah.
And so it's not a bad thing. It's just, it's the same thing, but different.
Yeah. Well, okay. So on the apt thing, their apt was first.
Yeah, fair.
Linux Mint's apt was first, and then Debian decided
it's just going to drop off get, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's totally cool, but it collided, and Clem was like, we already called it apt. It's going to stay apt. So
Right. But it does call some other things that you just don't know about, too.
Yeah, exactly. You would have to go into the Python script to actually figure out what the heck it's doing. Yeah. It is defined in some of the blog posts because...
Yeah, it's not terrible stuff. It's just...
Yeah, one of them specifically mentions, hey, here's this new thing called apt, and this is before apt was apt. And this is what it's going to do. Here are the commands that you can do apt install, and this is what it'll do. So it was all on the up and up, right? Like this didn't just show up one day.
No.
But
not quite as underhanded, I suppose, but it's doing different stuff, and now it's so far removed that people just don't know.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, you can type apt install whatever, and it just works, and so you just kind of assume it's doing what you think it's doing, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah, so okay, point taken. I'll give you that one. But I do think, though, that the snaps thing, I think more than anything, it just didn't fit into the vision, right?
No, probably not. No, I agree with that. Flatpaks are better fit, honestly.
Yeah, and this is especially coming at a time when I think the majority of folks that were using snaps or not using snaps identified snaps as just not as good.
Yeah, that's true at that point. Yep.
This is 2019. Remember, this is 6 years ago. Snaps are fine now, but I mean, 6 years ago they were
a little rougher.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, and certainly I think Flatpaks had a much better perception at the time. They didn't have as much software.
There's some ups and downs to both, right?
Yeah, I mean, Ubuntu was Canonical was greasing some palms on the up and up to get software into the Snap store. So I mean, certainly Snaps had more software, but Flatpaks just seemed a little more organic, and I think people liked it a whole lot more. And I think that fed into a lot of this because with Snaps it was a unilateral decision. With Flatpaks it was more organic-y.
Yeah.
And so felt less pushy.
So Clem did not go into that decision uneducated, if you will. So like he did go to one of the developer summits and whatnot. Right. And so
he was going to be on the team.
He actually initially thought that, well, maybe we can make this work and to find ways to bring Snap into Linux Mint. He actually was on board with it from kind of at the beginning. Right.
Yeah. This wasn't an Ubuntu bad kind of thing.
Right. He changed his mind later on, which is totally fair, because like I said, he went and did some research and homework on his own.
And then almost a year later, before I guess it was Mint 20, Clem just added a blocker.
Yep.
It just would not install Chromium. And that kind of left people that used Chromium in a bit of a lurch. But Mint does what Mint does, and they just started packaging Chromium. Yeah. And then we're like, okay, all right, we hear you. We know you want Chromium. We know you want it on Mint. I'm not going to let Snap happen without a deletion of a file. That's all it took.
Right.
Or changing or a commenting out of a single line, right? Like that's all it really took. I think people really overblew what Mint was doing. Like, Mint is preventing you from just comment out a line in a file. But
well, and I think they've teased about the idea of being able to have a toggle or something in the Software Center or something at some point.
But Mint does what Mint does, and they just started packaging it.
Yep.
So, and there was a lot of chatter about, well, I bet Mint won't package it. I mean, that's a lot of work. What do you think they're going to do? Take on a lot of extra work? Well, the answer is yes.
Yeah, they did.
Every single time.
Yep.
They've done it in the past, and they do it now.
Yep.
And then what happened?
Well, they did the same with Firefox. Well, here's the thing. You almost don't need to do it with Firefox now because Firefox is doing it themselves.
I mean, the snap of Firefox is fine, but the snap thing just doesn't jive with Mint. So they're going to continue to leave the blocker in there. But whatever they block, they're going to end up packaging. And this is the second major project. They've done it with others. This is the second major project we've seen them just say, all right, fine.
We'll take
you want it? We'll give it to you.
Yep.
Yeah. This is just the way that they do things, right? And this leads me to my last point, right? Which is, name me another operating system besides Linux Mint that is just like the whole thing. Like the full experience, they do everything.
So like Elementary probably comes the closest, I feel like. I mean, that is probably the next full-on cohesive, if it doesn't exist, we'll build it kind of distro. Right.
Exactly.
I think they're probably the closest. There's some others that make some attempts and do some things, but I don't think anybody has the whole thing. Like, they're not developing the desktop environment, all the applications, and, configuring the underlying base system the same way. No, nobody.
I think that kind of ecosystem requires an attitude of, all right, fine, we'll do it ourselves. Like it requires that kind of attitude. Otherwise, you just, whatever change happens upstream, you just let it wash over you and your users, and it just is what it is. But that's something Linux Mint has not allowed to happen. Maybe for a little bit while things get figured out, but ultimately it's always you know what? This is our vision. This is how we're going to do it. And if we have to do it ourselves, we will.
Yep. And I think it totally leads to that consistent thing you can count on, that comfy blanket for Leo, so he can just snuggle up and always know what he's got.
Anyway, one last question. Was Yaru first or was Mint Y first? Because they look really similar.
I don't know the answer to that.
Man.
So if somebody
chicken or egg,
if somebody knows which was made first, the chicken or the egg, let us know. Anyway, you can catch all the links at linuxuserspace.show. And if you want to send us an email so we can talk about it in one of those feedback episodes, that's your topic things that's coming up, you can email us, contact@linuxuserspace.show. All right, Leo, that brings us to next time. Next time is a topic feedback episode, so please do get those things in there, and we will discuss them. But the next history that we're going to do is actually, could be surprising. We're going to talk about snaps and the history thereof. Yeah,
we let Clem trash them a little bit, but then we're just going to dive into the history of them.
We got to figure it out. We got to know what it's all about. What's the hubbub? And we'll try to give it to you the best we can with some factual things as much as possible.
But at least one fact.
Yeah.
The history may be 3 minutes. I don't know.
We're not sure.
I think if you came into this thinking, man, they put a lot of thought into all the decisions they make, you would be wrong.
We might put a lot of thought into the episode, but we have not thought about anything before now as far as what the next time is going to be. So here we are.
Yeah, spoiler alert. We decided snaps approximately 2 minutes ago. So, but it seemed natural, right? It seemed like a natural progression.
I think so.
They're a flat pack thing. We'll talk about packaging. Snaps. It sounds good. Why not? Sure. Yeah. So, snaps, history of snaps. I don't know. It might be short.
It might be. But in the meantime, if you have some factual things that you want to point us at, some blogs or stuff, you can send them our direction. We'll take it.
Actually, listen, if anybody works for Ubuntu is listening to this, or someone that may have been involved in the whole snap thing, let me know, because I want to talk to you. And maybe these histories go a little differently moving forward, man. Maybe we'll see. We'll see how this goes. But anyway, if you know anything about snaps, you just poke me, and we'll see what we can get put together.
In the meantime, you can stay tuned we'll have, announcements and whatnot for live streams, because we do those. And you can tell us some stuff over on Reddit, Twitter, Mastodon, Telegram, Matrix, Discord, whatever, just...
That's how you poke us to tell us about snaps.
Absolutely.
If you know anything about snaps.
However you do it, join the conversation, and all the links in the show notes and on linuxuserspace.show. So, Leo, where can we find you?
You can tell me all about snaps at leochavez@mastodon.social or the Blue Sky, I think.
Yeah, you're on Blue Sky. Yeah. And you can find me at KC2BEZ at mastodon.social, and I am Monetary Abyss at Blue Sky. So come back in 2 weeks for more Linux User Space. Bye, y'all.
See you later. Did you go with Linux Mint?
I did not.
You joker. Ugh.
I mean,
don't even know.
Listen,
you don't even know what cinnamon feels like then.
Hold up. I did test the beta before they released. I did.
Not good enough.
I did some poking around at it. But no.
Rough edges.
Ubuntu Cinnamon. All right. Tell that to Joshua.
You know what? I'll tell it to Joshua until Cinnamon 6.6, where Cinnamon gets its new fancy themes that live outside of Linux Mint, and then everybody gets to enjoy them, and Cinnamon looks good. Later, CyberDuck. God. I keep meaning to pay those guys because I use them a lot more than I use FileZilla now, but their PayPal link doesn't work. So it keeps asking me, and I keep yelling at it that I can't pay you right now. It won't let me. You won't let me pay you. Come on, just let me pay you and I'll pay you, so you stop bugging me. The WinRAR situation.